Hello, everyone. My name is Gabriella Romeo. I am a 3L at Widener Law Commonwealth, and I am joined today by Niki Carter, an alum of Widener Law Commonwealth as well. We're here for a fun conversation about Niki and her journey from Widener and beyond. So to start, Niki, if you could please just introduce yourself, where you're from, your undergraduate institution, and what year you graduated from Widener.
Sure, of course. So again, Niki Carter. I will start. I guess I'll start with where I grew up. So I grew up in Northern Virginia. Coming to Widener was actually the first time I'd been to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Embarrassingly enough, I went to Clemson undergrad in South Carolina and took some time off in between undergrad and law school, which I highly recommend, and we can get into that a little bit more later. And I graduated from Widener in 2008.
And so then, why law school? What was your inspiration?
The admissions office is not going to like my answer to this. I was 25 and I worked in a different career before I went to law school, and I thought I could make more money. Sorry, admissions, sorry. And I was trying to decide what I wanted to do, and law school was one of the options that I tinkered with. I didn't have any lawyers in my family, but I did know that I wanted to be some sort of business advisor. I was in a marketing career prior to law school. So so I just started applying to law schools and here we are.
Harrisburg. I can appreciate that. I also when I started law school and was working in a career that wasn't my favorite and had always wanted to try law school, and here I am a few months from graduation. So I totally understand
Yeah.
that. So did you come into law school with an expectation? You just mentioned you started in marketing and wanted to do business. Did you find that expectation to become fulfilled?
Yeah, actually. And I say this with an asterisk, right? Because I always caution new law students, don't have your heart set on something specific, because you might change or you might discover you like something completely different, not necessarily through law school, but certainly after law school when you start to get into practice, and it's completely okay to change your mind. Just want to make that very clear. So I knew nothing about being a lawyer. Watched Law and Order SVU, some Judge Judy, things like that. So I really didn't know what being a lawyer meant. Sometimes I still think I don't know. But I knew I wanted to be involved in business some way. I didn't want to go to court. I didn't want to write briefs. I didn't want to be a litigator. I knew that for a fact. Now, I didn't know what kind of business I wanted to advise, and I've taken quite a circuitous route to get where I am now. But my dog, sorry, mailman's here. I just knew I wanted to be some sort of business advisor, but I had no idea what that looked like. I had no idea what that meant, really. I just knew I liked working with business. I had a sports marketing career prior, and I really enjoyed like the branding and the being involved in business and business decisions. And again, I didn't know what that meant, like from a legal advising perspective, but I stuck to that as pretty closely as I could with my electives and things like that when I was able to take electives.
That was a lead into my next question. I was going to ask what types of things you did well at Widener that helped gear you in the direction you're in now.
Sure. So the best thing was when Widener started offering subject matter based legal writing 3 courses. So that wasn't always the case. My third year, when I was a 3L, was the first year that they offered, or not offered or required, I guess, a legal methods 3 class. But I took contract drafting, and actually I taught it for a couple of semesters now too. But that was probably one of the most practical application classes, and I think that the legal methods classes are geared that way. A lot of the other classes are very theory-based, black letter law stuff you're probably going to use on the bar exam and maybe never use again, which is useful because you want to pass the bar exam. But I really found that the contract drafting class that I took as a legal methods 3 class really gave me a real foundation for contracts in the real world. Now, everything's going to be different once you get out, and you're going to learn on the fly no matter what you do. But working through that thought process of the building blocks of contracts, really, because so many business disputes either arise out of a contract or the interpretation of a contract or the breach of a contract, something like that. So I really felt like the Legal Methods 3 contract drafting class was one of the best classes to prepare me for real world business advising.
But it's still offered. So I have friends that have recently.
And I'm not teaching it anymore.
Yeah, no, it's still offered, which is great. So you mentioned you transitioned into law school after working professionally. How did that transition go for you? Did you have a difficult time becoming a student again, working out study habits, anything along those lines?
Sure. So actually, I think it worked out extremely well for me. And my own personal experience, both with some of my daytime, full-time classmates who had worked previously, and also with my limited experience with some of the evening division students who were working at the same time, and most of them had careers as well prior to law school. It wasn't hard for me to adjust to being a student again for a couple of reasons. One, I wasn't too far out of college. I worked for about 3 years in between. And the other reason was because I treated law school similarly to a job. And I think, well, I know that taking a few years off in between college and law school really gave me that a little bit more perspective, and really helped me with time management and really helped me with understanding what was really important. And now law school is important, don't get me wrong, you should study and you should take it seriously. But I think sometimes students take it maybe a little too seriously. And it's just a part of your life, and you need to make sure that you're still doing hobbies or still, going to the gym or reading for fun if that's something you like to do. That, and I think working in between really gave me that sense of, here, block off this time to do this, make sure you keep time for yourself, make sure you do this. So it wasn't hard for me to adjust back to that schedule, because honestly, my schedule didn't change a whole lot. I did most of my studying during daytime hours. I never pulled an all-nighter. I went to bed at my normal time. I did those types of things. So I was fairly regimented with my studying, which helped me stay a little bit less stressed. I'm not going to say I wasn't stressed. I was stressed, but a little bit less stressed. So I didn't find it was a hard adjustment. And, the professors at Widener are just wonderful. And having my fellow students, you kind of get right back into the groove, especially when you're around other students, and it just feels like you're back in school again.
I had a pretty similar experience, and so far it's been rewarding for me. So yeah, it's a good place, is what I like to say. I found myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what did you find yourself doing after graduation? What was your step one?
Yeah, I had a lot of steps. So my step one, of course, which most people do, is study all summer and take the bar exam. So, but I was very fortunate. I had worked for Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney as a summer associate between my second and third year. I was very fortunate to be offered a job at the end of the summer. So I didn't have to worry about trying to find a job. I knew I was going to start working October. In October, the year after I graduated, or the May after during the year I graduated. I haven't had enough coffee today. So I was very fortunate in that sense that I didn't have to worry about trying to job search and trying to study for the bar exam. So after I took the bar exam, I did start working at Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney, and I worked in their corporate finance group for about 2 years. It was a mix. Corporate finance makes it sound like we're working with Wall Street and things like that, and it was not really that, but we did a lot of formations of business. It's a great way to start. I think first year associates really start to look at the documents and understand all of that. We also did some asset sales, stock sales, things like that, just general business advising, excuse me. But I was also really fortunate there in that I was the only associate in the corporate finance group. So I was able to get some more sophisticated experience, as opposed to there being lots of first year associates in the office in that particular group. So that was a really great experience for me right out of school.
That sounds like a fun experience.
Yeah, there was some nerve-wracking moments. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know. But everyone feels that way when they graduate. You're kind of like, here, do this. It's like, it can be very overwhelming. So that's very normal.
We actually had a conversation prior to the interview today, and we were coming up with some questions. And I think there's a lot of talk about imposter syndrome. And I know I say to myself, like, I'm applying for jobs to be an attorney, and I'm like, am I qualified for that? And it seems like you've maybe experienced some similar moments or still do.
Sure. Yeah. It's very common. I think it's also very common for women, in particular. And I've experienced that with both my colleagues, and also my friends who are in legal profession, even my friends who aren't in the legal profession. Absolutely. You come out of law school, and while you've obviously learned a lot throughout your 3 years or 4 years, depending on whether you're doing extended division or full-time day division. But when you have to talk to a client, or for your classmates who might go to the DA's office or the PD's office, you're put right to work. There's no, there's not a whole lot of time to say, here, we're going to hold your hand, and we're going to do, you really do have to think on the fly. And it can be overwhelming, because these are a lot of the work you're going to be doing is serious. It's serious. And these people who are your clients, it's the most important thing for them in their life. At that moment, I remember being in law clinic, and it's very weighty sometimes to think, wow, I'm responsible for this. Someone is entrusting me with this problem that they have, and they're relying on me. I mean, a lot of people will come to you as a client, and they don't know anything about their scenario from a legal perspective, and that is something to be taken very seriously. And that can certainly feel overwhelming, and you get that kind of deer in the headlights moment where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know, what did I do? Is 6 hours of research enough? Do I have enough information to truly advise this person correctly, or represent this person in the best way possible? So yeah, and I still do that. I mean, I've been out of school. I don't want to do the math on that for quite some time, and I've been in a variety of roles. And in my job now, I am a subject matter expert in certain areas, for the entire company in some respects. And that can, you go, wait a minute, do I really know the answer to this? Sometimes you second guess yourself, but my recommendation is to, that you've been hired for a reason. Everyone makes mistakes, and we're all going to make mistakes. I still make mistakes. And the important thing is not to worry about making a mistake and dwell on it. Look at it, figure out, what went wrong, or how you came to that, whatever it was. Take a look at it, figure out how you got there, and just set up a checklist or a system or something like that, so that it doesn't happen again. And over time, it'll go away. But when you get a promotion or you move into a new role, you're going to have that same feeling over and over again. And that's okay. It's normal. I've talked to a lot of women in our law department in my current company. And, it always amazes me still that these really experienced professional women that I look up to as mentors will say, oh yeah, I moved into that position and I was terrified. I'm like, what? No way. But it makes me feel much better to know that, women who've been doing this for longer than I have, or who I look up to, also experience the same thing. So it's normal. Don't let it consume you. Recognize it's normal. And ask questions. Definitely ask questions. It's never a bad thing to ask questions, and most people will be more than happy to help you. And you'll learn, and it'll happen, and you'll get there. And sometimes you'll feel really confident, and fake it till you make it, right? Don't fake the law. Don't fake the law. Fake the confidence until you have it.
Absolutely. That's some really, really great advice, and I think very sage for me as well. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
So you mentioned your role now. So can you speak to what your current job title is, and how you ended up there, and what you do from day to day?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my title, no one hold your breath during this. It's very long. So I am a North American Regional Counsel for the Aerospace Defense and Marine Business Unit in TE Connectivity. And I am also lead counsel for the Marine Oil and Gas Subvertical, which is within the Aerospace Defense and Marine Business Unit at TE Connectivity. Mouthful. I'm in-house commercial counsel for a business. The company makes electrical connectivity products, which if you'd asked me what that was 5 years ago, I would not have been able to tell you. I still have trouble telling people. But it's pretty much anything and everything that conducts or helps conduct or, move electricity around. So we're a manufacturing technology company. And so what all that many words means is that I'm a business advisor, really. So one of my main responsibilities is to reduce the risk for the company, whether that's through making sure I'm reviewing and approving contracts and making sure I'm asking the right questions of the business to ensure that they understand the risk that they're accepting and really walk them through step by step. I also am the government acquisition regulations subject matter expert, for better or for worse, and that is on behalf of our U.S. federal government business. We're both a prime contractor and a subcontractor to the U.S. government, and so that comes with a whole set of regulatory or regulatory scheme that can be quite complicated and confusing at times. I also, as lead counsel for the marine oil and gas business unit, I am a part of the business leadership team. So with the general managers, some of our leads, director of operations, things like that, we have weekly calls where we talk about what's going on in the business. I help to encourage isn't the right word, but not only am I expected to give legal advice, I'm also expected to be part of the team that helps guide the strategy. A good example of that is I got on the phone with our director of sales and I said, hey, walk me through the 5-year strategy plan. I want to understand if there's some places, whether it's something in the company that I know that the business may not know, like because I'm involved in the law department at a higher level and we have the experts in every area, or, whether it's something the sales team says, hey, we've had trouble getting into this market, in this region. Can you help us identify what, some of the legal barriers to that market might be? So it's not just as simple as saying, I read contracts or read the regulations. I tell the business what they can and can't do. It is some of that, of course, but it's also, really understanding what the business's strategy is and brainstorming and working with them as a business partner to help them fulfill their goals, to, our go-to-market strategy, our, if a new regulation comes out, I help to just, help figure out what our strategy is going to be to comply with that. I do some compliance work as well, although it's not my my main responsibility. So there's also, if we get a claim from a customer for something, about helping evaluate that claim, help negotiate that claim, to try to reduce the liability for the company. So I also participate in investigations. We have an ombudsman office, which is a completely independent office where people can file, employees and even third parties, customers and things like that can submit claims or not claims, I'm sorry, complaints, or if they think there's an ethics violation or something like that. And
can you still hear
I don't know where I cut off.
The last I heard was about you said filing claims, but it wasn't quite claim, like compliance matters or
Oh yeah, so we have yep. So we have a really robust ethics and compliance program. And so part of that is having the ombudsman's office, which is an entirely separate, independent office, and they report directly to our board versus to the business side of the company. So as part of the law department, the attorneys also investigate those complaints and things that come through the ombudsman office through our, we have concern line and concern net, so you can call in a concern or you can submit a concern through the web, and then we investigate those and make sure that they're investigated to conclusion. So that's part of our jobs as well.
A lot of really neat things. Do you find there's a facet that you like the most, that you're like, oh, I get to work on this today, I'm really excited about it?
Yeah, I do actually. So one of the things I didn't mention is I also do training. So I am in the before times when we were able to travel, I would go to some of our different sites and do training, whether it was, again, like the ethics and compliance training, or, a training on what to do if government officials show up at your site, training on some of the different government acquisition regulations, things like that. So I love, that's one of the things I love is putting together trainings, and then doing the training and then doing the follow-up and kind of being the touch point for that. So I really enjoy that. Another thing I really like doing is taking, most of the time it's government regulations, but it can be other things as well, but taking a regulation and mapping out the compliance and then helping to develop programs within, or whether it's a policy, a procedure, anything like that. It usually involves, there's usually a training component as well. But I really like taking new regulations, figuring out, how I can help the company get into compliance, because with new regulations, sometimes there's no framework for it. The government doesn't always help in a lot of ways. And you kind of have to rely sometimes on outside counsel, sometimes internal counsel, a combination of both a lot. But I really enjoy taking those new regulations, figuring out and developing a plan for us to be compliant, and then putting that in, implementing that plan, rolling out the training, doing that type of thing. So, which isn't probably something typically that you'd think, oh, I'm going to go to law school and then I'm going to train people, but I really enjoy it.
That's a neat
And
example.
it's a puzzle to me, right? You have like this regulation, you have to figure out, here's our business, here's our budget, which is always important, and how do I make this work with our budget, and making sure that we're doing it the right way. So
Yeah, I think it's a really neat example of how a law degree can be used, and in a way that you, like you just said, you wouldn't think I'm going to go to law school to train people. So would you have any advice for students that are interested in a similar area of law, working in the business field, for instance?
yeah, absolutely. So it's well, yes. Our law department is so large that there are kind of niche roles just about for anything. So I'm going to be a little bit more general, because I know that our in-house law department is not going to be the norm for a lot of law graduates. So in-house is pretty hard to get into right out of law school. But if being an in-house counsel is something that you want to do, I would definitely encourage you to get some experience advising businesses. It's a very, I don't want to say very different, because that's kind of all I've done. But it's a different way of advising, because it's not purely legal, right? So I can tell the business what the law is, I can tell them what they can do legally, but most of the time, that's not what they need. Most of the time, what they need is for me to look at the landscape for them, whether it's a contract with a customer, what are we required to do under the regulations, what is not required under the regulations, but what the customer is asking us to do, and have those discussions with them to say, listen, this is what the customer is proposing. This is what we've done with similarly situated customers. Here are the required regulatory framework that we have to work in. How do we reduce the risk to the business, and having a conversation with them, because a lot of it is business strategy too. So it's not so much like, it's hard to say it's not legal, because it is legal, but it's much more of a business brain. Like, I'm always thinking kind of in the back of my head from a marketing perspective, because the brand of the company is very important. And it sounds weird to say that in a legal career sense, but for me it's important, right? Because like when you're a solo attorney, the work quality that you put out is reflective of who you are as an attorney. It's your brand, it's your business. Well, not dissimilarly, the work product that I put out is part of the company's brand. It's reflective of the company with the work that I put out on the street, whether, whatever it is, whether it's a contract that goes to our customer, what have you, that's reflective of the company. And you want to be a good business partner. I think in-house counsel sometimes gets a bad rap of saying, no, you can't do that, and then not giving the business an option. And it's very rare that we actually tell the business, no, you can't do it. Like, if it's, because if it's not illegal, it's not our choice. And that, I think, is hard for people who haven't worked with a business to understand, maybe. Like, this probably, I didn't understand this about lawyers before I went to law school, before I became a lawyer. We don't necessarily get to make the decisions, right? We are advisors. We're advising our clients, but the clients at the end of the day get to make the decision about which path they want to take. And that's the same in the business. I can say, hey, business, here are your options. Here's what might happen if you choose option A. Here's what might happen if you choose option B. And here's what might happen if you choose option C. And I may have a preferred option, but it's not up to me. And if the business chooses something, I have to be able to, back it up or defend it or whatever it is for them. So that's a really long-winded answer. Back to your original question. So I would try to get business advising experience, whether that's at a law firm or doing, even pro bono. There's a lot of pro bono programs where you can volunteer to help out small businesses. I know there's at least one in Philadelphia. I don't know if there's one locally here, but any business experience for people who are going into litigation roles, that can be a little bit of a hard transition because most of the litigation in-house that companies come in-house, we farm it out. We use outside counsel for that. I don't know anything about litigation, it's not something, I help manage our outside counsel if we have something like that. But I don't, we're generally in-house counsels, not the ones who are actually, drafting briefs or things like that. We honestly don't have time. So I would, not that you can't move from litigation to an in-house role and be perfectly fine, because again, there's niche areas. If it's a large company and they're looking for someone to be their litigation manager, then you're set and you don't have to worry about having business experience. So I guess the big asterisk on this answer is it depends on the in-house position, right? If it's a very small law department, you're going to need to be a generalist. So get as much differing experience as you can. If it's a large law department and they have niche roles, and there's a specific role that you want, I would, if you want to, like we have a real estate team and that's all they do. But that's obviously part of a huge law department. Not everyone has a real estate attorney, but if it's a small department, summary, too long, didn't read. Here you go. If it's a large law department, you're probably going to be able to go in with a niche background. If it's a smaller law department, you want to try to get as much different types of experience as possible because you're going to end up being a generalist. But honestly, you can get into an in-house role with any background. I would just keep that in mind. For smaller law departments, more of a generalist, varied background. For large law departments, you can specialize in an area. Like if you're an IP attorney, we have IP attorneys. That's all they do. So I don't know how helpful that was.
It's very helpful. I answer questions the same way, so yeah. I love to talk, and I always think of new things as I'm giving one answer, and then it all kind of, I feel like it comes together in the end, and I think you managed.
Trying to bring it back together, yes. You can nudge me in the right direction if you need to.
I learned new things. I like to listen. I think that was great. So you mentioned your contract drafting class. Did you have any other experiences at Widener, any other classes, organizations that you were part of that you felt really helped you step into the field as an attorney versus a student?
Yes, but maybe not in the way that you would think. So I think any organization that students participate in is going to be helpful. And the reason I think that is because it's networking opportunities. Networking opportunities are going to be incredibly helpful. Not only if you graduate and stay in this area, because the Widener network here in Harrisburg is extremely strong. But I also know that, our alumni office can put you in touch with graduates in most places. And I would very much encourage students to get involved in whatever they want. It doesn't, I know, certain things look better for certain roles on the resume. But at the end of the day, even if maybe your grades aren't good enough to get on the law review, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do something else, because you're going to meet people, and alumni are involved in a lot of these things. I know like moot court brings in alumni judges to help when students are preparing for a competition. And that's a great opportunity to meet practitioners in the field, to meet people in the area, if you're going to stay in the area here. And so network with other students as much as possible. You don't have to be best friends with everyone, but having the connections both with your fellow classmates and then also as many connections as you can make with alumni. I know it's a little hard now in pandemic times, but we're still here. We're willing to get on calls with people. I'm always willing to talk to someone, because that networking is going to be so helpful in finding jobs. I don't think there's been a legal position that I've interviewed for after I graduated that I didn't either know someone at the company, or I was put in touch with someone by another Widener person, whether it was a professor, even a professor I never took a class with, or a fellow student. And the other thing that is great about networking and knowing people, I refer business to my friends from law school. Like I don't do family law. I don't do. So if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, do you know an attorney in the area that can do a divorce?" or I have a child custody issue or something like that. And I'm like, yes, Alexis, I'm going to send you to Alexis, no problem. And that is a great way, be nice to everyone. It's really a good, be nice to everyone, get involved, and just stay in touch with people. Again, you don't have to be best friends with everyone, but it's really having that network after school is so helpful for your career. If you want to change career path, the best thing to do is to talk to someone in a career path you're interested in. How do you find those people? You find them through the alumni network, or through the alumni office, or through your fellow classmates, or through a professor. And that network has been invaluable to me. So yes, you need to learn things. You need to learn that stuff to pass the bar, and it's going to be a fairly good foundation for your practice, and at least getting you the writing skills and the thought process and things like that. But I truly believe that the most beneficial thing for me from Widener was the community that I established, and that supports me and that I help support. So I'd really encourage people to, I think at least new graduating students are automatically members of the Alumni Association. So definitely try to be active with that. Again, it's hard, pandemic. We don't have events right now, but anytime there's an event, show up, talk to people. The more you introduce yourself, if you're nervous and don't like, introducing yourself to people, practice. The more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And honestly, you can tell by how much I talk. If you just ask them a question, they're gonna talk. Lawyers love to talk about themselves. So all you have to do is say, hey, I'm a new graduate, or hey, I'm a student. Tell me about what you do. Like, I'd love to learn more about what you do. And you're gonna get plenty of information and probably not have to talk very much. So yeah, I think that networking community, the alumni community, the professors, the administration, that I think was really one of the most beneficial things to me after I left law school.
I think I will end up saying a lot of the same things. I always say one of my favorite things about Widener is the community, and
yeah,
it's there if you're ready to embrace it and willing. I think everyone's willing to help you and lend a hand. And
absolutely. And the first graduating class of Widener, if you meet anyone out in practice or they're retired, maybe retired at this point, and they find out you're a Widener grad, they're gonna help you. If you have a question or you need help, it doesn't matter. It's really, really strong in central Pennsylvania. And I think that is a huge, huge benefit.
That's really sweet. So I'm going to transition a little bit. And so you mentioned you're not from Pennsylvania, and you came on up north, I guess. And so how did that transition go? And like you obviously stayed here.
I did. So I grew up in Northern Virginia, which is an incredibly extensive area and it has lots of traffic. So the cost of living here is amazing to me. So that was part of the draw, but kind of, piggybacking on my last answer, I also found a great community here. I actually ended up, after grades came out first semester and everything got a little wild with everyone at school, I joined a kickball league, which at the time, in Harrisburg now there's 15 kickball leagues, but at the time there was one and there were 6 teams. And I decided I wanted to make some friends outside of law school to help me get out of that kind of like high pressure stress environment sometimes, and just meet people, because after I decided I really wanted to stay in Harrisburg, I'm like, I'm probably going to want some friends who aren't attorneys and just, to do some non-law things. So I joined a social sports team, met a lot of my friends that way, who are still some of my best friends today. Actually, some of my best friends in the community weren't my classmates at Widener, but I met them through things like the Harrisburg Young Professionals Organization, which is a great organization for people who are new to Harrisburg and people who are from Harrisburg, but who want to maybe get some leadership opportunities that are outside of the legal community. But you meet a lot of people in the legal community, but also, banking, all sorts of stuff. And that can really help you for business or for referrals or networking, things like that. So I'm a type of person, I can go anywhere and feel at home, and I've obviously no problem talking to people or, meeting new people. So for me, it wasn't very hard. I really enjoyed learning about the area. I enjoyed meeting new people. I enjoyed making new connections. And I will say, for people who aren't from this area, but who do come here, for school, I would really encourage you to give that area a chance. If you think, oh, I'm just going to go home, I'm going to go back to wherever I was living. I don't want to discourage you if that's what you want to do, but I also would very much encourage you to get to know the folks in the community, get to know the legal community here. It's extremely supportive. Obviously, we're the capital, so we have a lot of state government if that's something people are interested in. There's a lot of firms here as well. There's a lot of corporations that have headquarters here. We've got Rite Aid, Hershey, Tea is not headquartered here, but we have a huge campus here. So there's really a lot of opportunities that I think people might not necessarily be aware of. So I encourage you to talk to alumni, talk to Eden and the career development office, utilize the alumni association. But also, don't feel like you can't go outside of the law school community, get involved in other organizations like the Harrisburg Young Professionals, like some of the social sports leagues. Grab a friend from law school, join a kickball team. There's frisbee, there's volleyball, there's kickball, there's dodgeball. I think there's bowling, and there's all sorts of stuff now. But that's a great way to meet people in the community and really kind of build your new family, so to speak, if you're not from this area originally. So those are all things that really helps me develop my community here.
And this goes along with Harrisburg. Do you have a favorite restaurant in Harrisburg?
Yeah, well, yes. So it's probably, my answer will appeal to people, but not for the same reason. So I eat vegan, which kind of limits opportunities. But there's actually a lot of great restaurants here now. So from a purely vegan perspective, I really enjoy the Vegetable Hunter that's downtown on 2nd Street. They have, even if you're not vegan or not vegetarian, they have a lot of really good food. But I also love the food at Evergreen, the brewery over in Camp Hill. And so I love Evergreen. They have a wide range of menu items, including vegan options. So that's a great place to gather with friends. It's a little harder now when we're at 50% capacity, but when it's nice out, they have a great lawn, and you're supporting local businesses again. So I'm huge on supporting local businesses here in our community. So if you want to try some vegan, vegetarian food, Vegetable Hunter, highly recommend. And then also Evergreen, of course, because they've got a lot of great food.
Evergreen, it's a hit amongst my friends.
Yeah, I cannot.
It's a fun place. I like their giant Connect 4.
Yes. Yeah, and for people who have families, like it's a great place to bring kids, especially when it's nice out. They've got the outdoor lawn area, they've got games. I think there's oh my gosh, there's air hockey, I think, as well. So there's maybe it's not air hockey, there's something. But yeah. But yeah, I see families there a lot. So, there's things for the kids to do. There's great food. If you drink, they have great beer options, and they have a bar as well. And if you don't, I think they do local sodas. So they stock some local made sodas as well. So, and they do usually have like some sort of fresh lemonade and things like that too. So
it's a fun place.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so I think just one last question to wrap up our time. And if there's anything that you'd want to add, feel free. But what was your most memorable moment from your time at Widener?
Memorable in a good way or memorable in a bad way?
We all have those, the first cold call or your first.
Yeah. Let me give a warning to all future students. If you have Professor Robinette, silence your cell phone. Do not let your cell phone ring in class, because he will call on you for the rest of the class period. Not me, by the way, not me. But that, Professor Robinette is just so professional and so just, very even keel and calm and great and wonderful. But I'll never forget, we had a classmate of mine's phone rang in tort class. And he wasn't mean about it. He didn't, he's still Professor Robinette, very chill, just very calm. But he did not call on anyone else during the entire rest of the class. We probably had about an hour left, and I have never seen anything like it. So that was one of the more memorable. Oh, and Professor Domino also showed up to teach one of our common law classes in a tuxedo once.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very early on a Friday morning, and some of us may or may not have been hungover, and so some of us were very confused about what was going on. So those were two memorable, not academic, but memorable moments for sure. Just to give our professors a little bit of human character there. But no, they're all wonderful. I'm trying to think if there was. Well, I will say so. I was able to participate on the Law Journal, and that was really cool. I was published, chosen to publish, and then published as a part of our, I'm going to say it wrong, the Administrative Law Journal, or the Administrative Law Edition, which all the participants got to be published. But it was very cool to be published in that, and then also really cool just to be a part of it. It's a great experience. I don't know how much it actually helped me in terms of lawyering. It helps your attention to detail, to be sure. But it was just cool to be able to put something like that together that potentially attorneys will use, in their practice. They'll rely on some of the pieces that you've published, and that's pretty cool to know that you've contributed to that type of thing. And I can't speak to my classmates who are on some of the competitive teams, but I know that they also really enjoyed having competitions and being successful in that. So there's something for everyone, honestly. But also have fun with. I hope your professors are fun because they really are. Their professors are great. They're a lot of fun, and Professor Domino hopefully will not come after me for that for finding everyone he came to class in a tuxedo one day.
Yes, I love it. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely, I'm happy to. And yeah, I mean, I would encourage any students, both current students, prospective students, even any alumni. The alumni are here. We want to help. I can't think of any alumni who I know who are actively involved who wouldn't be more than happy to set up a quick phone call with someone. I talked to one of my colleagues' daughters, actually, who was thinking about going to law school a month or so ago. I just set aside half an hour to answer any of her questions, and just because I was asked. So definitely utilize the network. Reach out if you don't know who to talk to, or you don't know how to get a hold of someone. Reach out to the alumni office. They'll be able to put you in touch with any of us. I think there is also an email on the Alumni Association website, so please email us. If it's as simple as saying, hey, I'd love to talk to someone who practices, estate, who practices in estate law or practices in family law or does whatever. You'll be able to talk to someone, and I would really, really strongly encourage all students, prospective, current, and also alumni, new alumni especially, or alumni who aren't new, but maybe you're thinking about a career transition or need a mentor or something like that. Definitely utilize all of that stuff that's available to you. It's going to be really invaluable.
Well, thank you again, Niki, for joining me today. It was a pleasure to get to know you and learn about your life from Widener and beyond. And for our viewers, thank you for joining us as well. And stay tuned for more alumni interviews.
Great. You're welcome. Happy to be here.